Okay, cool. So Lourdes asked me to talk about what we're doing or trying to do in Belgium. I just wanted to show how we work and what we try to do. So this is about Teach a Future Belgium. Wait a minute, my screen doesn't work. Yes, there we go. First and for all, and this is something I really mean, sometimes I'm feeling lonely here in Belgium because there are not a lot of people involved thinking about making students and youngsters more future literate, and therefore it feels sometimes like yelling in the desert. And therefore I am so thankful to be part of this movement, because we have like-minded people trying to do something similar in their own country and region and helping each other wherever they can and how they can do it. So my thanks goes on to you. Now, our Teach the Belgium Hub is quite new. This is a blog article from 3 years ago. And together with Maya from Limpert and myself, we are Teach a Future Belgium. It's a very, very small community. We are still struggling on finding funds and developing strategy and stuff like that. But in the meantime, we are really trying to make this movement happen also here in Belgium. But for my daytime job, I teach futures. I mainly teach futures at Vives University of Applied Sciences. There I have my own minor almost, an interdisciplinary trajectory. It's called E-Society. I am the coordinator and I teach 2 courses. One of the courses is Emerging Technologies and the other one is Futures Thinking. But I also am a guest professor to some other University of Applied Sciences, but it's always and only about futures thinking. And so I never teach anything else except futures thinking. Now, I mainly wanted to talk about what we're trying to do at Vives University with my interdisciplinary trajectory. It's an international program. For the last 4 years, each year we had about 25 students. They don't have a background in design or innovation. They do have a background in humanities, and they've never ever heard about futures before. And if they choose this trajectory, they don't know what you're going to get. So it's always a surprise for them to talk and to learn about the future. Now, this is something I can imagine that a lot of you can recognize. You can teach, but you can't make them learn. How can you teach the future in a way that is both inspirational and relevant for them, and to really make them understand what we're talking about? So this is not how I teach. It's not about keynotes and lectures. I try to do something else. Also, I do this, but it's not good enough. And this thing, I think, is the real thing I use each year, and I'm very happy with that. Each year, I give my students a mission impossible. So in the first lecture, I say they're going to do, they have never ever done before. It's always in the context of futures thinking, but they are going to have to do it together. And I wanted to show some of the projects they have realized. Mostly, and I think this is very important, whenever each time I say they're going to have to do this, I see tears and a lot of sweat, because they're really scared. And this is also something I want to say in advance. Each year they accomplish it by far. They always succeed, never without an exception. Why do I use this approach? And I think this is a very important slide for me. You give them something, you teach them something, but if they don't process what they have learned, they didn't learn anything. So I give them some input, I give them some insight, some information, and then they have to work together on that mission impossible to create a tangible output. And based upon that, I can, and they also get feedback on things they have learned right, things they are missing, things they want to learn more about. And then we have another turn on the wheel. I give them some additional input, and they grow and they grow and they grow. This is a thing I stole from Scrum and Agile methodology. Each time I give them a small fraction, make them learn, make them evolve, and make them succeed in the end. Some of the projects they have made in the past, and I think this is one of the first things they had to do 4 years ago. I challenged my students to build a website themselves that explains the futures to their peers. Again, they have never ever built a website before, they've never ever done copywriting before, they've never ever thought about usability, information structure, and most importantly, they never ever talked and thought about futures and to explain it in a relevant way to their peers. And this was a wonderful project because they really have to talk about futures, about societal implications of technology, and so some societal concerns we have for the near future, some goals, and there we have had the SDGs, for example, things we want to realize. And this was a very pleasant thing. The website is no longer available online because they have paid for it themselves. And since they are no longer students of me, they cut it, the subscription, so it's no longer available. But I still have some screenshots and some video. So this was a first thing. A second thing, also quite cool, also the first year. And I think this was also a very good one. I also guide some bachelor thesis students, and there are about 8 students after the trajectory themselves, and they have to work together on a different project. And here I challenge them to make some sort of a pedagogical educational package again for students. And this was also a very good project. Why? Because in the end, they have been given a reward for that by a organization that gives awards for a very good bachelor thesis. So this was also a very good thing. And then this is the second year. This is something I do each year. Each year I try to raise the bar, because each year I tell my students, hey, last year those students had done that, you can do better, and you have to raise the bar. So the year after the first year, I challenged them, and this is something of relevance, I think, for all the participants. I've lost his name, but they had to build a game themselves. Again, they have a background in humanities. They've never ever thought about building a game themselves, yet they did it. And as you can see also in the previous slides, people can download this. People who don't know about futures thinking, they can just download whatever they have developed and use it in their classroom. This is the same with this. You have a big download button. People can try to download the game themselves and use it in their own classes. So for me, it's never only about making them learn, but it's always about making impact in the realm of future literacy and future thinking. So this is the thing they did in the second year. This is they also did do in the second year.
Hello. Welcome to the Museum of Futures.
I'm going to talk over it. So in the second year, I had to raise the bar, and I have a dream, and this is something I'm going to talk later about. But I have a dream of having and building a Museum of Futures, a physical thing in Belgium. So in the second year, I challenged them to build their interpretation of a Museum of Futures in Minecraft. So it's a virtual thing. You can walk in it, it's still available online, but you can walk in it online for about 2 hours. And again, I gave them something in before, but everything they had been given, they had to process. And here you can see futures cone and what is futures thinking. I'm going to skip ahead because they did more. They had to also have there's a section of the history of futures thinking, and here they contemplating on how emerging technologies could influence the futures. I'm going to skip ahead. Then they also had to talk about the futures of love, the futures of communication, the futures of dating, for example. So this was pretty sweet. I'm going to skip ahead because I can do this all day. This video only by itself is already 22 minutes. So you can see they have put a lot of effort in it. And in the end, again, in the beginning, they were scared. In the end, they fucking did it. And they were so proud, and they learned a lot about futures in the process. So here's about the future of living, or futures of living, sorry. This was a future of an interplanetary species, whatever. They've done a lot, and this is a project they were very proud about, and also for me, I'm very proud of it also. So as you can see, I've written a short, I don't like to write, but they ask me. So I wrote a very short piece, a blog article, and it's available on Teach a Future blog. And there you can read something more about why and how we did it. And then again, the year after that, we have already built a virtual museum of futures. I had to raise the bar. Sometime, once upon a time, I will be at the end of my inspiration, so please inspire me. But I challenged them, and this is also a pretty sweet thing. I did this year. I challenged them to make a documentary about futures themselves. Again, they don't have a background in video editing and post-production and stuff like that. But together with the 25 students, they have made a documentary about how we feel about the futures. As you can see, and this is also very important, it's always their name on there, because I really want them to take credit for it. It's their project, they have done it. So here you can see they had to think about sound, they had to think about the concept of futures, they had to think about video, but they had to do more. I'm going to skip ahead. They also had to talk with a lot of people. And here you can see, I'm going to go a little bit further. Yeah, here you can see we have a lot of international students at Vives University, of Applied Sciences, and they really had to talk with those students and to record them and to integrate it into the video itself. It even goes a little bit further, because I did not only challenge them to talk about their fellow students, they also had to talk about the futures, about how we felt about the futures with their parents and with their friends and with others. And I think this is where the impact is really happening. We're trying to find, yeah, here you can see Freddie. Freddie is somebody's father.
Regardless of where you are.
And I think this is very powerful because these are not the typical guys who think about the future. So this is also a very good thing, and they have done. So they were proud. I am happy they have learned. So I am very happy. And this is, I wanted to show you something about how I did it, because I teach, but I also try to guide them. And like I said, they have never ever built a documentary themselves before. So this is how I did it. And I think it's a very good way. As you can see, the first week, I have 19 students. For the first week, each one of them had to make a documentary themselves that only lasts for 1 minute. And then they have shown it to each other. We talked about it. And then the week after that, I divided the entire group in 4 groups. Or 5 groups, I don't remember, 4 groups, and together they had to make a documentary together with about the same topic for about 5 minutes. And again, we've shown it to each other, we talked about it. The week after that, I made some different groups, and there we had 2 groups who had to make a documentary of 10 minutes, and then the real thing started, because then they had to work as one team, as one group, and different versions, as you can see. I told them and I promised them that I would dislike their first version. I would not approve. They had to fail, because if they didn't fail, they couldn't learn. I said that to them beforehand, so they knew. And then they evolved and grown into the end result you have seen. Again, this was pretty cool to do, but this was also pretty sweet. Because again, this year I had some bachelor thesis students. And I wanted really to think about the futures, and I gave them the assignment to think about the futures of the internet. And yes, they had to do some horizon scanning. Yes, they had to use some sort of scenario planning. Yes, they had to use gym data archetypes. Yes, they did do some groundwork with regard to world building from Lea Zidaya. They all had those tools, but the end result should be, and they've delivered it, 20 short sci-fi stories based upon those 4 scenarios. And then after that, I've thrown this online, because like I said, it's always about learning, but more importantly, it's about impact. A lot of people have downloaded and seen their results. Because in the beginning of this trajectory, I told them, how many people do you think that are going to read your bachelor thesis? And first they were pretty naive and they said, oh, 20. Nah, I think it's less. Yeah, 5. No, I think it's less. 3. Yeah, I think that's about right. So let's do something differently. Let's write some sci-fi stories. And now I can say to them that more than 100 people have read their results and they're proud and they have done it. Also, and was something extra, and this is something you don't know, but we organized some sort of a small gathering, and we had 4 storytellers who had a very good voice, and each of those 4 storytellers has selected one of the 28 stories, and they read it out loud to an audience. And then the story really came to life. And this was, again, they had to bring friends and parents to listen to those stories. But this was pretty cool. So that it's free to download. It's an ideal thing to do during the holidays to read some sci-fi stories about the future. This is, and I can show it to you, but it's not that important. I have prepared it beforehand. I didn't just say, yes, you have to write 28 stories, go ahead, I won't help you. No, I have prepared an entire Miro mood board where they had different steps they have to think about. Here with the future archetypes, you can see we have used Gym Data future archetypes, and the post-its you can see over there are the weak signals or trends that validate each one of those scenarios. And there you can see also Lea Zedaya's world building framework, and they had to fill it in for each of those 4 future archetypes. So this is something behind the screens. So for me, it's always, and it will always be about raising their bar. And as you can see, all of my previous students have delivered. So this gives me the power to challenge the next cohort of students to go even further, to do it even better. Because it's fun to do it like that. It can't be easy, it has to be hard, but it should also be safe. And they should know that there is a guide along the road that is going to guide them during the process. With the learning and the delivering, they have to do themselves, because that is what teaching is all about, I think. Why do I engage in project-based learning? And this is the methodology I use, because they really have to learn and they have to become problem solvers. And each time they come to me and they're stuck, and they know it, I always say, figure it out, figure it out, figure it out. By the way, and this is also pretty cool, a few years ago, they gave me this. So this I've been given by the students that have developed the websites about futures thinking, and they gave me a new art where they really thanked me. So this is something I always keep at heart, because it means a lot to me, because it proves that this way of teaching for my students in this context, in this country, works, because they have to be creative, because they have to work together, because they have to be critical, and because they own it, they own their own learning, and they see the result and they see the impact of their results. So this is a methodology I try to use, and we'll see what the next years will bring. Like I said, I think the learning process is by far the most important thing. Why I also think that project-based learning is a very interesting way is because it allows them to rehearse their own future skills. It's not about knowledge, it's about being creative, it's about being imaginative. And as you can see by all the examples I've given, it's always about making a dent in the universe. It's always about stimulating change, about making something happen. And this is not with regard to the teaching assignment I have at Futures at the Vivas of Applied Sciences. But this is something else. I mentioned it before. I really want to accomplish. I really want to succeed in it. and I'm going to pull everything I am to make this happen, and it will be hard, and I will struggle a lot. But a few years ago, I was thinking about a strategy about how we can make this Teach the Future movement happening here in Belgium. And I came to an insight. And here in Belgium, I think it's nearly impossible to bring future thinking into the classroom because they are very conservative. But I can bring classrooms to the future. So I started with the idea of developing and making a museum of futures happening, because all of those students go to a day out with the skill. Sometimes they go to a museum. What if I can build a physical place where students can go just on an excursion to see something cool, and meanwhile we make them learn about futures thinking and futures literacy. And this is a very big and a very naive and a very idealistic idea. I have developed a business plan, but I did talk with a lot of people about this project. And this is a project, and here we're talking about millions of euros. So it won't happen in an overnight. But I talked with a lot of people on the different levels. And one of the people I talked to, they work at a regional government. It's a regional government here in Belgium. And they said to me, no, Thomas, it's a very good idea, but you don't have the funds. But how would you feel about curating a futures festival here in Belgium? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? Let's do that. And about a little bit more than a year ago, I started with this futures festival to how we could make this happen. And initially, it was far bigger. But because of Corona and because of energy crisis, and because they didn't understand what we were going to try to do, we had to downsize a little bit. But that's what we have is still enough to make a dent, I hope. Because we even have a logo and a name and a location, because we have money now, because we didn't have any money. And now the regional government is paying for a futures festival. And this is pretty sweet. This will happen in the beginning of October. We have a location, we have a name. They call it Futuretopia. For me, it sucks. I would call it differently, but I don't care. We have a festival about futures thinking, so I'm happy. And as you can see, the baseline tomorrow starts today. I think this is really about futures. Let's think and talk about futures today. So this is what is going to happen. Like I said, initially it was far bigger and more international, but this is what we still have. We have a opening evening, an opening night with a lot of keynotes and other stuff. And as you can see, 400 people, and this is a named list. These are, I think, the 400 most powerful people in this region. So they are business guys, they are principals, they are politicians, and they are invited for this opening night. So it's a very good audience. But then, and this is, I had to fight for it internally to make this happen, but we have a full day dedicated to Teach the Futures. So in the morning, we have 50 people and they will learn about why we should teach the futures, and there are principals and there are, people like that. And in the afternoon, we have teachers themselves. And there we are going to talk about how we can teach the futures. So these are teachers and people who have never ever heard about futures thinking and futures literacy before. Now we'll have 100 people here in Belgium who will understand why and how we do it. And then the third day is for the business people also here active in Belgium, because strategic foresight, not a lot of people are doing it here. And so while he is here, we are also going to have a full day masterclass on strategic foresight. Here you can see 50 people. I think we'll end up at about 100 people. But it's very, we are nowhere here in the region. So I'm happy with this. I've mentioned he, because he is coming to Belgium. And this is something I'm very, very, very happy about. Because once they asked me to downsize the program I had in December, and they asked me what you really want to accomplish, what you really want to have if you have to cut it, I said, yes, I want Peter to come to Belgium and to spread the news and to talk about futures and futures thinking and futures literacy and about strategic foresight. And he's the man who can put things on fire here and to really kick this movement off. So I'm very happy that he's coming in Belgium in October. Also, this is also pretty sweet. I talked to my bosses, and after the Wednesday evening, I wanted to give each of the teachers a small gift. And we have bought for 100 pieces of this copies of this book, because if they understand what this is all about and they get a book and they learn how they can use it and they can read it afterwards in this book, maybe, just maybe, we can make it moving, our movement. So let's see. One more thing, we are nearly there. But initially, I wanted to take the part of being a curator for this Futures Festival. But I asked them one thing. I really want to have a small exposition on futures thinking, something small. And this is this could have been a prototype of the Museum of Futures, because people don't understand. But if I could have shown them, then they would understand. And initially, I've done a lot of work with regard to that. But then in December, they said, no, let's not do that because we do not understand. What about making a documentary? Yeah, sure, why not? So I ditched everything I have prepared beforehand for that exposition. And we are shooting a documentary with a production company where we have talked with a lot of people. These are youngsters, old people, and also experts from different backgrounds. So here you can see one of my friends. He's a Prof. Doc at the University in Ghent, and he's a professor in communication sciences. And here he's talking to the camera of the relevance of futures thinking. He's not an expert in futures thinking. Still, he makes a good thing about. He says it's important. We also had a historian. We also had some business people. We also had somebody involved in art, and also Erika Bol from the European Commission has come to Kortrijk, to Belgium, and she had also talked about the relevance and importance of futures thinking. And this documentary will be launched on the 3rd of October. During the opening night, during Celebrate the Future, and afterwards we're going to throw it in the air, to throw it online, and see if we can make things move even beyond our own region. So it will also be available with English subtitles. Also, and now I'm almost there. At the beginning, I said, yes, having a Futures Festival is pretty cool. But what about making a book also? And they said yes. And what did we do? And this is a cover, and it's in Dutch. Sorry, no, it's also a little bit in Latin, but you know, it's Lorem Ipsum. But we also have a book. And in this book, it's the idea of polylogs is very important. So we interviewed 24 people to share their own futures perspectives. It's not about divisions, it's about perspectives. In my regard, it's something else entirely because it's smaller. So we have 24 short interviews, and they each start with a what if question. And of course, they have also interviewed me, and my what if question is, what if we could build a museum of futures in Bruges? Again, just to make them aware that I'm dreaming out loud, and maybe something once upon a time could happen to make this happen. And this is also a gift we'll give on everybody who will attend the Futures Festival. Yes, this is just pretty cool. It's a mock-up. Yes, it's you know, this is what I've been working on for the last months, and the deadline is almost there. because in a week or 12, I think, and this will have happened. And we'll see after that if something has happened. But I can tell you, I'm pretty tired now, exhausted even, but I know exactly why I am doing this. I am not a project manager. I hate project management. And I'm doing it because the why is more important than the how. And if we can make this happen, maybe we will have a real futures thinking teacher future community in Belgium after that, but we'll see. After that, and this is maybe a general insight I wanted to share with all of you. I think it's about dreaming big. And I think it's true for my students. They have developed a documentary, a metaverse museum, some material themselves, a game, you know, they have all done it. And also, yes, the Futures Festival is happening because somebody dreamt out loud, and they really wanted to achieve that dream. After the Futures Festival, I hope that things will go more smoothly. I still have some dreams after that. And I really hope once upon a time, I will be able to invite you all to Bruges, where we'll open the Museum of Futures. Keep in mind, I have nothing, but this is what I'm aiming for. If it happens, you're all welcome. We'll drink, we'll talk, we'll laugh. But in the meantime, and this is also a dream, I'm dreaming of making my own PhD in the realm of futures literacy. It's nearly impossible to find funding, but I have to dream out loud because I really, in my head, I have an idea of making a handbook about futures literacy. I have structure and content and stuff like that, but it's hard for now because I have other things to do also now. So that's it.
Wow, Thomas. Bueno, a big applause. Amazing, inspiring. I'm amazed because I already knew some of the project, but when you see it all together and through the time, it's impressive. So congratulations. You are not only teaching them skills regarding future thinking, but communication skills, like so critical thinking, so many skills that are really important for their lives besides only future. So I think it's inspiring for all of us that we are here. And I'm sure I saw people taking notes. Some of us are going to implement some of these ideas. I will ask you afterwards a recap of the links so we can have all the projects together. I also share your email there in the chat. Jan, please, yes, really brief because I want Daniel to share a news before we end, but yes, Jan.
I just wanted to congratulate Thomas, but also to say that after 23 years of working futures in Latin America, I stopped screaming in the desert and I took out my machete and I started chopping up and making new paths in the jungle. And I think that helped me to embrace the concept that we're visionaries. And that's why this kind of a network is so important. One other thing I wanted to say about Thomas's work, which I have learned to do, meet the people where they are. Thomas is pushing the bar, but he's also working with his students in humanities and helping them to apply the future to where they are. So when we work with activists in Latin America, we look at their projects and we help them to transform them into laboratories of the future. So it's very important not to come in with recipes and not to impose things that they can't do. As we push the bar, we also understand where they are. beautiful innovation, Thomas. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for all your work.
I want to add something to that because I truly believe that you're spot on with something. The nail I'm knocking on, if you're intrinsically motivated to make it happen, they'll make it happen because it comes from here, and it's not some authority who says you have to do it. No, they have to have the feeling that they want to do it. And I think that's a secret ingredient, I think.
And when you take your work into other countries, into other parts of the world, the way I have, you're a foreigner, and you have to be very careful, even more careful about how you come in with new ideas and how you generate innovation within the cultural context, within their reality. So that'll be an interesting challenge for you. And my email is in the chat anytime you want to